Hello, I am back. A dinosaur's tale. Just kidding. I just recently finished 1984. I also read The Rise of the Governor, The Walking Dead, because that was the first book. But I ended up starting with The Road to Woodbury, so I ended up reading 2 1. It's kind of like a Star Wars prequel sequel situation. Wow. And I just watched the new Fahrenheit 451. 1984 was like a not 2 year book. I started reading like the first third of it and then I put it up and just couldn't get into it. And then I didn't read it, I got the audiobook and I actually finished it in like 2 hours. So, yeah. Wow, there was just so many parallels between 1984 and the modern day um, United States. I did like the fact that there were only 3 nations in the book, and the economic and political stuff is kind of what we're going through now in this world, I think, in a lot of ways. And after all, with the NSA spying on everyone from Zimbabwe to Alaska, Big Brother really is watching you. Go figure. I also like the quote in the book that sanity is not statistics, or statistical, or something like that. That was really good. I like that. Freedom through strength. What is it? Slavery is freedom. Something like that. That was really, just really, really good. Newspeak and political correctness, I think, are virtually the same thing. It's equivalent to dumbing people down to where everybody's offended. Or we could take the opposite spectrum of the thing and be like, nobody should be offended about anything. I have to say 1984 is, for all intents and purposes, a paradigm shifting book. I actually gave this book 5 stars. I was trying to figure out what Orwellian meant, and then I stumbled upon the word Kafkaesque, and I literally just finished reading Metamorphosis last night, and that was something I was not expecting. It took me like 45 minutes to read it, so it wasn't a very big book, but it has huge cultural implications. My grandmother was in a nursing home, and it was literally the exact same situation as was with the protagonist or antagonist in the Metamorphosis. Now let's get to the movie, Fahrenheit 451. I read the book probably 6 years ago, and I love the book. I love the movie that was based, I think, came out in the 60s or 70s. I watched that a long time ago, right after I finished the book. The new Fahrenheit 451 is something completely different, but it actually, in a lot of ways, is more relevant. 1984. Too many dystopian novels and not enough brain space. Fahrenheit 451 is actually more relevant to today than it was when it was written back in, I don't remember, but I think it was the 70s when it came out. I'm probably mistaken, so you can always look it up and correct me. I don't care. Just been reading it a lot. All right, now let's get to The Walking Dead: The Rise of the Governor. Okay, that book was like a 4-star book. That's how good that one was. Robert Kirkman's novels are just actually help fill in the blank spaces or the black holes in the Walking Dead series. It's interesting, though, because when you read the books about the governor, you actually watch him go from a loving, caring father and develop into a sociopathic, insane SOB. I have to give The Walking Dead 5 stars on the fact that the character development is exceptional. I don't know if it's just me, but every time I read like a book about a dystopia, which is The Walking Dead is, for all intents and purposes, The Walking Dead is a dystopian fiction. It makes me think that we ourselves are living in a dystopia. And, yeah, I think we are. It's an odd combination of Fahrenheit 451 and 1984. I really don't think it was meant to be a guide for the state, but it seems to have literally came along the exact same front as them novels did. I just think it's an odd thing. I don't know if it's an actual relevancy, but it seems like the more dystopian we read, the more that is published by the large publishing houses and the less so large publishing houses, the more dystopian civilization actually gets. Here's the thing I was thinking. Dystopian actually, if we live in a dystopian society, the novels have to be 3 tiers higher or worse than the dystopia we actually live in. There's probably some philosophical name for it. But it's like the higher and more closer to a nightmarish dystopia we get, the more the dystopian novels have to get just a little bit worse and a little bit worse. So right now we're in 1984. I'm not a big fan of the Hunger Games, but the Hunger Games compared with 1984 is completely worse, I think, in a lot of ways. My nephew read The Maze Runner. I tried to read it. I didn't get into it. It's just not my thing. But The Walking Dead's a perfect example. The Walking Dead dystopia versus Orwellian dystopia. The Walking Dead is 1,000 times worse, I think. So, please leave your comments below and like and subscribe. And as I always say, don't forget to dance in the madness of dystopia. Just kidding. The madness of life.